Vasudeva. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Avadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhakti Bhagavati Nashtiki. So continuing with the discussion on Krishna book, chapter 87, prayers by the personified Vedas. So Prabhupada's commentary continues. Nature and the living entities are sometimes designated as Prakriti and Purusha respectively. So living entities are Purusha for the nature, but for Krishna, it is Prakriti. The whole cosmic manifestation is an amalgamation of Prakriti and Purusha. Nature is an ingredient cause, and the living entities are the effective cause. Though these two causes combine together, and its effect is this cosmic manifestation. So living entities here in material world, in material nature, in front of material nature is Purusha. Even though we could be in the body of a female or male, but still the living entity is Purusha. Why? Because of the tendency to control Prakriti or tendency to enjoy that nature. When one is fortunate enough to come to the right conclusion about this cosmic manifestation and everything going on within it, he knows it to be caused directly and indirectly by the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. It's concluded in the Brahma Samhita, therefore, Ishvara Paramaha Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha. After much deliberation and consideration, when one has attained the perfection of knowledge, one comes to the conclusion that Krishna or God is the original cause of all causes. Instead of speculating about the measurement of God, whether He is so long or so wide or falsely philosophizing, one should come to the conclusion of Brahma Samhita. Krishna or God is Sarva Karana Karanam, the cause of all causes. That is a perfection of knowledge. But we don't go to Krishna that He is the cause of all causes. We start thinking, I am the cause of everything that is happening in my life. Of course, that is happening whatever is unfavorably, yes. Oh, Krishna, why God did this to me and this and that. So nature is the ingredient cause and the living entities are the effective cause. Wow. So ingredients are coming from the nature, earth, water, fire, air, ether, three modes, mind, intelligence, everything coming from nature. And the living entities are the effective cause. But because of living entities being there, we get different kinds of bodies, and then we act according to that nature. But original cause is Krishna. He is the cause of all causes. Thus the Veda Stuti, or the prayers offered by the personified Vedas to Garbhodaksha Vishnu, were first narrated in disciplic succession by Sanandan to his brothers. So 4 Kumaras, among them Sanandan Kumar, he was telling his brothers, all of whom were born of Brahma at the beginning of the universe. So we know for 4 Kumaras were born and Brahmaji asked them to fill the universe with more entities, and they refused. They said, no, we don't want to get into all this. We want to remain Brahmacharis. The 4 Kumaras were the firstborn sons of Brahma. Therefore, they are known as Purva Jata. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that the Parampara system of the disciplic succession begins with Krishna himself. Similarly, here in the prayers of the personified Vedas, it is to be understood that the Parampara system begins with the personality of Godhead, Narayan Rishi. We should remember that this Veda Stuti is narrated by Kumar Sanandan, and the narration is repeated by Narayan Rishi in Badrikash. Narayan Rishi is the incarnation of Krishna for showing us the path of self realization by undergoing severe austerities. In this age, Lord Chaitanya demonstrated the path of pure devotional service by putting himself in the role of a pure devotee. Similarly, in the past, Lord Narayan Rishi was an incarnation of Krishna who performed severe austerities in the Himalayan ranges. Shri Narad Muni was hearing from him. So, in the statement given by Narayan Rishi to Narad Muni, as narrated by Kumar Sanandan in the form of Veda Stuti, it is understood that God is the one supreme and that all others are his servants. So, this is the final conclusion. Only supreme is God, everybody else is a servant. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is stated, Ekale Ishvara Krishna, Krishna is the only supreme God. Our Sabhritya. All others are his servants. Yare yaiche nachaye se taiche kare nirtya. The Supreme Lord, as he desires, is engaging all the living entities in different activities, and thus they exhibit their different talents and tendencies. So the way he is making us dance, everybody is dancing or engaged in different activities. This Veda Stuti is thus the original instruction regarding the relationship existing between the living entity and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The highest platform of realization for the living entity is the attainment of devotional life. One cannot be engaged in devotional service or Krishna consciousness unless one is fully free from material contamination. Narayan Rishi informed Narad Muni that the essence of all the Vedas and Vedic scriptures, namely four Vedas, Upanishads, Puranas, Vedanta Sutra, is to render transcendental loving service to the Lord. In this connection, Narayan Rishi has used one particular word, rasa. In devotional service, this rasa is a via medium or the basic principle for the exchange of dealings between the Lord and the living entity. Rasa is also described in the Vedas, Raso Vaisa. The Supreme Lord is a reservoir of all pleasure. All the Vedic scriptures, including the Puranas, the Vedas, Upanishads, Vedanta Sutra, teach the living entities how to attain the stage of rasa. So rasa is a relationship. More than the relationship, the taste that flows in that relationship, or the mood that is there, that is rasa. Just like Vatsalya ras, Madhurya ras. So Madhurya ras is just one mood, and in that, the taste that flows between now Krishna and Radharani, Krishna and Gopis, Krishna and other Sakhis of Radharani, Krishna and the Manjaris, it's different rasa altogether. But it all just clubbed together in Madhurya ras. Even in that, there is so much of variety. The Bhagavatam also says that the statements in the Mahapuran, Srimad Bhagavatam, constitute the essence, rasa, of all Vedic literature. Bhagavatam is the essence of the ripened fruit of the tree of the Vedic literature. Essence of the ripened fruit. Not just any fruit. Essence of the ripened fruit. That we can, just like if it is a mango, and it is completely ripened. And the essence of that mango, the ras, amaras, that we all know about amaras. So that is, Bhagavatam is compared to that. We understand that with the breathing of the Supreme Personality of God, there issued forth the four Vedas, namely Rig Veda, Yajur, Sam, and Atharva Veda, and also the histories like the Mahabharata and all the Puranas, which are considered to be the history of the world. The Vedic histories like the Puranas and Mahabharata are also called the fifth Veda. The 28 verses of the Veda Stuti are to be considered the essence of all Vedic knowledge. For Kumaras and all other authorized sages know perfectly that devotional service in Krishna consciousness is the essence of all Vedic literature. And they preach this on different planets, traveling in outer space. It is stated herein that such sages, including Narad Muni, hardly ever travel on land. They perpetually travel in space and always preaching about all the Vedic knowledge, and especially the devotion service. And see, another thing that Prabhupada said, okay, breathing of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there issued forth the four Vedas, and also the histories like Mahabharata and all the Puranas, and obviously Ishopanishad, all the Upanishads also come. Nowhere it is mentioned that this is mythology. It all came from the Lord. And Puranas means the histories. Puranas are basically the stories of different events that happened in the past. Ramayana is a Puran. Mahabharata is a Puran. Another Puran, 18 Puranas are there. But nowhere it is said it's mythology. This term mythology is given by Britishers, Macaulay. We call him Lord Macaulay. I don't know why we call him Lord. He wanted to put down the Vedic literature and wanted to glorify Bible and other Christian literature. So he put that through our mind, and for last 70 years, this is what has been taught in the school in Hindu mythology, this. And very proudly we talk about, oh, Hindu mythology. Never even think of what this word means. Mythology comes from myth. Myth means fiction. Is Srimad Bhagavatam a fiction? Mahabharata, Ramayana, all the Puranas, are they fictions? But we very proudly say, this is Hindu mythology. So please correct anybody who says this word mythology. It's nonsense. Sages like Narad and the Kumaras travel throughout the universe to educate the conditioned souls that their business in the world is not that of sense gratification, but of reinstating themselves in their original position of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is stated in several places that the living entities are like sparks of the fire, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is like the fire itself. If the sparks somehow or other fall out of the fire, they lose their natural illumination. Thus, it is ascertained that the living entities come into this material world exactly as the sparks fall from a great fire. So we were part of that original fire, which is Supreme Personality of Godhead. Somehow we have fallen out of that fire. Living entity wants to imitate Krishna. Why? Because we are part of that fire. So we want to be like fire, like Krishna, and tries to lord it over material nature in order to enjoy sense gratification. Thus, he forgets his original position and his illuminating power. His spiritual identity is extinguished. Either extinguished, or we can say it gets covered over, because spiritual identity cannot be extinguished. It just gets covered over. Then we forget what is our spiritual identity. However, if a living entity takes to Krishna consciousness, he is reinstated in his original position. See, this is the right word, reinstated. It's not that we create a new position. To preach this process of devotional service, sages and saints like Narad and the Kumaras travel all over the universe, educating people and increasing their disciples. Their aim is that all the conditioned souls may be educated to revive their original consciousness, so Krishna consciousness, and thus gain relief from the miserable conditions of material life. So this is their only purpose, the sages and saints. And obviously, Prabhupada himself also, and other acharyas, he came just to educate people all over the universe and try to convince them, this is your original consciousness, original position. Get to that. Why are you suffering here? And as Prabhupada does gain relief from the miserable conditions of material life. Shri Narad Muni is a Naistik Brahmachari. There are 4 types of brahmacharis. The first is called Savitra, which refers to a brahmachari who, after initiation and the sacred thread ceremony, must observe at least 3 days of celibacy. The next is called Prajapatya, which refers to a brahmachari who strictly observes celibacy for at least 1 year after initiation. The next is called Brahma Brahmachari, which refers to a brahmachari who observes celibacy from the time of initiation up to the time of completion of his study of the Vedic literature. So till he completes his studies, he remains a brahmachari. The next stage is called Naistik Brahmachari. The next stage is called Naistik Brahmachari, which refers to a brahmachari who is celibate throughout his whole life. Out of these, the first 3 are called Upakurvana, which means that the brahmachari can marry later, after the brahmachari period is over. The Naistik Brahmachari, however, is completely reluctant to have any sex life. Therefore, the Kumaras and Narad are known as Naistik Brahmacharis. Such brahmacharis are called Veer Vrata because the vow of celibacy is as heroic as the vows of the Kshatriyas. The brahmachari system of life is especially advantageous in that it increases the power of memory and determination. Because there's so much of power in the semen, even every drop of semen. Somewhere it is said that it contains as much energy as 60 drops of blood. And if somebody can retain that semen, then his memory and determination definitely increases. It is specifically mentioned in this connection that because Narad was a Naistik Brahmachari, he could remember whatever he heard from his spiritual master and would never forget it. One who can remember everything perpetually is called a Shrutidhar. A Shrutidhar Brahmachari can repeat verbatim all that he has heard, without notes and without reference to books. The great sage Narad has this qualification, and therefore, having taken instructions from Narayan Rishi, he is engaged in propagating the philosophy of devotional service all over the world. Because such great sages can remember everything, they are thoughtful, self-realized, and completely fixed in the service of the Lord. So this is the great quality of sage Narad Muni. And somehow in the movies and TV serials, he's shown just like a comic actor. That's an offense against Narad Muni. Thus the great sage Narad, after hearing from his spiritual master Narayan Rishi, became completely realized. He became established in the truth, and he became so happy that he offered prayers to Narayan Rishi. Narad Muni addressed Narayan Rishi as an incarnation of Krishna and specifically addressed him as the supreme well-wisher of the conditioned souls. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that Lord Krishna descends in every millennium just to give protection to his devotees and to annihilate the non-devotees. Narayan Rishi, being an incarnation of Krishna, is also addressed as the well-wisher of the conditioned souls. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, everyone should know that there is no well-wisher like Krishna. Everyone should understand that Lord Krishna is the supreme well-wisher of everyone, and it should take shelter of him only. In this way, one can become completely confident and satisfied, knowing that he has someone who is able to give him all protection. Krishna himself, his incarnations, and his plenary expansions are all supreme well-wishers of the conditioned souls. But Krishna is a well-wisher even of the demons, for he gave salvation to all the demons who came to kill him in Vrindavan. Therefore, Krishna's welfare activities are absolute, for whether he annihilates a demon or gives protection to a demon, the result of his activities is one and the same. It is said that the demon Putna was elevated to the same position as that of Krishna's mother, Yashoda. When Krishna kills a demon, the demon is supremely benefited, as much as a pure devotee is benefited by always being protected by the Lord. Because when Krishna kills a demon, so the killing process is so strong, so tough, that all his negative, sinful reactions, they just go away. He gets purified. Only when Krishna kills. Narad Muni, after offering respects to Narayan Rishi, went to the ashram of Vyasadeva, his disciple. Being properly received by Vyasadeva in his ashram and seated very comfortably, Narad Muni narrated the entire story of what he had heard from Narayan Rishi. In this way, Shukdev Goswami informed Maharaj Parikshit of the answers to his questions regarding the essence of Vedic knowledge and what is considered to be the ultimate goal in the Vedas. The supreme goal of life is to achieve the transcendental blessings of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and thus become engaged in the loving service of the Lord. One should follow in the footsteps of Shukdev Goswami and all the other Vaishnavas in the disciplic succession and should pay respectful obeisances unto Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari. The four sects of Vaishnava disciplic succession, namely the Madhva Sampradaya, the Ramanuja Sampradaya, the Vishnu Swami Sampradaya, and the Nimbarka Sampradaya, in pursuance of all Vedic conclusions, agree that one should surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is the essence of the Vedic literature. All the Vedic knowledge, this is the essence. The Vedic literature is divided into two parts, the Shrutis and the Smritis. The Shrutis are the four Vedas, Rig, Sam, Atharva, and Yajur, and the Upanishads. And the Smritis are the Puranas and Itihas like Mahabharata, which includes the Bhagavad Gita. Conclusion is that all these is that one should know Shri Krishna as the Supreme Personality of God. And this is what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. By all the Vedas, I am the compiler of the Vedas, Vedesha Sarva Rahame Vedya, and by all the Vedas, I am to be known. All the Vedas means all the scriptural knowledge, not just for Vedas, all the scriptural knowledge. I am to be known. Krishna says, I am to be known. If one does not come to this understanding that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we have to serve him in loving, reciprocal, loving devotional service, then he hasn't understood the Vedas. That he is the Param Purusha, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, under whose superintendence material nature works. For creation, maintenance, and annihilation, the Supreme Lord incarnates into three: Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu, and Lord Shiva, after manifesting the material cosmos. All of these take charge of the three modes of material nature, but the ultimate direction is in the hands of Lord Vishnu. The complete activities of material nature under the three modes are conducted under the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Maya Dakshena, and in the Vedas, Sa Akshata. Means everything is under the supervision of Krishna. The atheistic Sankhyaite philosophers will, of course, offer their arguments that the material cosmic manifestation is due to Prakriti and Purusha, material nature and the living entity, or the material cause and the effective cause. But Krishna is a cause of all causes. He is a cause of both the material and the effective causes. Prakriti and Purusha are not the ultimate cause. He is Param Purusha, so he is a supreme cause. Superficially, it appears that a child is born due to the combination of father and mother. But the ultimate cause of both the father and the mother is Krishna. He is therefore the original cause or the cause of all causes, as confirmed in the Brahm Samhita. Both the Supreme Lord and the living entities enter into the material nature. The Supreme Lord Krishna, by one of his plenary expansions, manifests as Karana Dakshayu, Mahavishnu, the gigantic Vishnu form, lying in the causal ocean. Then from that gigantic form of Mahavishnu, Garbhodaksha Vishnu expands and enters into every universe. From him, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva expand. Vishnu as Kshirodaksha Vishnu enters into the hearts of all living entities as well as into all material elements, including the atom as Paramatma. So this is how Krishna takes care of the whole material nature. The living entity has a small material body taken in various species and forms. And similarly, the whole universe is but the material body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is living entity, a small material body, and the whole universe is a gigantic body. This body is described in the Shastras as Virat Rupa. As the individual living entity maintains his particular body, the Supreme Personality of Godhead maintains the whole cosmic creation entering within it. As soon as the individual living entity leaves the material body, the body is immediately annihilated. And similarly, as soon as Lord Vishnu leaves the cosmic manifestation, everything is annihilated. Therefore, only when the individual living entity surrenders unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead is his liberation from material existence possible. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Mamevya prapadyante maya metam tarante. Surrendering unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead and nothing else is therefore the cause of liberation. How the living entity becomes liberated from the modes of material nature after surrendering unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead is illustrated by the example of a sleeping man within the room. When a man is sleeping, everyone sees that he is present within the room. But actually, the man himself is not within that body, for while sleeping, a man forgets his bodily existence. Although others may see that his body is present. Similarly, a liberated person engaged in devotional service to the Lord may be seen by others to be engaged in the household duties of the material world. But since his consciousness is fixed in Krishna, he does not live within this world. His engagements are different. Exactly as the sleeping man's engagements are different from his bodily engagements. It's confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that a devotee engaged full-time in the transcendental loving service of the Lord has already surpassed the influence of the three modes of material nature. So sleeping man means, in case of a liberated soul, although he is doing the activities in the material world, but he is completely sleeping or unaware or is not involved in any of the materialistic activities, or his consciousness is engaged in the Supreme. So he is sleeping to Maya actually. He's not involved in Maya. So one who is engaged in service of the Lord has already surpassed the influence of the three modes of material nature. He is already situated on the Brahman platform and is in the transcendental realm, although he appears to be living within the body or within the material world. In this connection, Srila Rupa Goswami states in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that the person whose only desire is to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead may be situated in any condition in the material world, but he is to be understood as Jivan Mukta. Jivan Mukta Sarchate. That is to say, he is to be considered liberated while living within the body or the material world. Conclusion, therefore, is that a person fully engaged in Krishna consciousness is a liberated person. Such a person actually has nothing to do with his material body or the material world. Those who are not in Krishna consciousness are called karmis and jnanis, and they hover on the bodily and mental platforms and thus are not liberated. This situation is known as Kavalya Nirasta Yoni. But a person situated on the transcendental platform is freed from the repetition of birth and death. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter. Simply by knowing Janma Karma Chami Divyam, Krishna says, simply by knowing the transcendental nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, one becomes free from the chains of the repetition of birth and death. And after quitting his present body, he goes back home, back to Godhead. This is the conclusion of all the Vedas. Thus, after understanding the prayers offered by the personified Vedas, one should surrender unto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. So finally, thus ends the Bhaktivedanta Purport to 87th chapter of Krishna, prayers by the personified Vedas. Although verses-wise, there were not many, were I think 50 or some verses. But commentary by Prabhupada is amazing, and this went on and on and on. It's wonderful. Veda Stuti is very, very wonderful chapter. Just clears all the philosophical doubts. So I guess we can stop here. Or you want me to take up the next chapter? Let's see first if there are any questions or comments.
Yes, please, Prabhuji. Please continue.
Yes, Prabhuji.
So I think looking at Prabhupada's commentaries, we can just read Krishna book only, not going to Bhagavatam. Because only 3 chapters are left here in Krishna book. And then 10th canto will be over. And then from 11th canto, we'll take up Bhagavatam again. So chapter 88, the deliverance of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva got into trouble. As a great devotee of Krishna, King Parikshit was already liberated. But for clarification, he was asking various questions of Shukdev Goswami. In the previous chapter, King Parikshit's question was, what's the ultimate goal of the Vedas? And Shukdev Goswami explained the matter, giving authoritative descriptions from the disciplic succession, from Sanandan down to Narayan Rishi, Narad, Vyasadeva, and Shukdev himself. The conclusion was that devotional service or bhakti is the ultimate goal of the Vedas. The neophyte devotee may question, if the ultimate goal of life or the conclusion of the Vedas is to elevate oneself to the platform of devotional service, then why is it observed that a devotee of Lord Vishnu is generally not very prosperous materially? Because a devotee of Lord Shiva is found to be very opulent. And this is always a question. He is saying ultimate goal is to worship Krishna, serve Krishna, or do bhakti of Krishna. But then why the devotees of Shiva are materially opulent, not the devotees of Krishna or Vishnu? In order to clarify this matter, Parikshit Maharaj asked Shukdev Goswami, my dear Shukdev Goswami, it is generally found that those who engage in the worship of Lord Shiva, whether in human, demoniac, or demigod society, become materially very opulent. Although Lord Shiva himself lives just like a poverty-stricken person. On the other hand, the devotees of Lord Vishnu, who is the controller of the goddess of fortune, do not appear very prosperous, and sometimes they are even found living without any material opulence at all. Lord Shiva lives underneath a tree or in the snow of the Himalaya mountains. He does not even construct a house for himself, but still the worshippers of Lord Shiva are very rich. Krishna or Lord Vishnu, however, lives very opulently, whether in Vaikuntha or in the material world. but his devotees appear poverty-stricken. Why is this so? So if you still have any thoughts of leaving Krishna and living very opulent life, it's a month of Shravan and Lord Shiva's devotees are all over worshipping Lord Shiva. So if you want to change your mind, it's the right time. Maharaj Parikshit's question is very intelligent. The two classes of devotees, namely the devotees of Lord Shiva and the devotees of Lord Vishnu, are always in disagreement. Even today in India, these two classes of devotees still criticize each other, and especially in South India. The followers of Ramanujacharya and the followers of Shankaracharya hold occasional meetings for understanding the Vedic conclusion. I don't know if the Shastrartha still goes on or not. Generally, the followers of Ramanujacharya come out victorious in such meetings. So Parikshit Maharaj wanted to clarify the situation by asking this question of Shukdev Goswami. That Lord Shiva lives as a poor man, although his devotees appear very opulent. Whereas Lord Krishna or Lord Vishnu is always opulent, and yet his devotees appear poverty-stricken. It's a situation which appears contradictory and puzzling to a discriminating person. Replying to King Parikshit's inquiry, Shukdev Goswami said that Lord Shiva is a master of the material energy. Material energy is represented by goddess Durga. And because Lord Shiva happens to be her husband, goddess Durga is completely under his subjugation. Thus, Lord Shiva is understood to be the master of the material energy. Material energy is manifested in three qualities, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. And therefore, Lord Shiva is a master of these three qualities. Although he is in association with these qualities for the benefit of the conditioned soul, Lord Shiva is a director and is not affected. He is not affected by any of goodness, passion, or ignorance. But he is a master because his wife, Durga, she is controller of everything in the material world. In other words, although the conditioned soul is affected by the three qualities, Lord Shiva being their master is not affected by, not even by mode of ignorance. Actually, he is really the controller of mode of ignorance, but even all the three modes are under him. He is not affected by them. From the statements of Shukdev Goswami, we can understand that the effects of worshipping different demigods are not, as some less intelligent persons suppose, the same as the effects of worshipping Lord Vishnu. Shukdev Goswami clearly states that by worshipping Lord Shiva, one achieves one reward, whereas by worshipping Lord Vishnu, one achieves a different reward. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Those who worship the different demigods achieve the desired results the respective demigods can offer. Similarly, those who worship the material energy receive the suitable reward for such activities. And those who worship the Pitras receive similar results. But those who engage in devotional service or worship of the Supreme Lord, Vishnu or Krishna, go to Vaikuntha planets or Krishna Loka. That's a difference. One cannot approach the transcendental region of Paravyom, the spiritual sky, by worshipping Lord Shiva or Brahma or any other demigod. So by worshipping Lord Shiva. Now Lord Shiva, his position is very, very unique, as we had discussed earlier also. So he's a founder Acharya of a Vaishnava Sampradaya, Rudra Sampradaya. He came as Shankaracharya to give Mayavad philosophy. So those who want to follow Mayavad philosophy, the impersonalist philosophy, they follow Shivji also in the form of Shankaracharya. He is husband of Durgaji. So anybody karma khandis, when they want some money, they worship Lord Shiva. They're not worshipping him as a Vaishnavacharya or Mayavadi Acharya. They're worshipping him as a demigod and asking him for money, material opulence. So that is why many times it is said he is the Supreme Lord in the universe. But anything you want, you go to him. But as a Vaishnavacharya, founder of a Vaishnavacharya parampara, he's not saying worship me, he's saying worship Krishna. Even as Shankaracharya, in the end, he said, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Mudamate, you fool, you rascal. Bhaja Govinda, don't get into this philosophy of Mayava. And as a demigod also, he does give rewards, but his rewards basically let his follower, who are generally demons, get mercy of Krishna. And that is called Sakapat Kripa. It's not Kripa, it's not direct Kripa. It's mixed with some kapat, some roundabout way, we can say. This Kripa. It's not direct Kripa. Since this material world is a product of the three qualities of material nature, all varieties of manifestations come from those three qualities. With the aid of materialistic science, modern civilization has created many machines and comforts. Yet there are only varieties of the interactions of the three material qualities. Although the devotees of Lord Shiva are able to obtain many material acquisitions, we should know that such devotees are simply collecting products manufactured by the three qualities. The three qualities are again subdivided into 16, namely 10 senses, 5 working, 5 knowledge acquiring senses, the mind, the 5 elements. These 16 items are extensions of the three qualities. So material happiness or opulence means gratification of the senses, especially the genitals, the tongue, and the mind. By exercising our minds, we create many pleasurable things just for the enjoyments by the genitals and the tongue. The opulence of a person within this material world is estimated in terms of his exercise of the genitals and the tongue. Or in other words, how well is he able to utilize his sexual capacities and how well he is able to satisfy his fastidious taste by eating palatable dishes. Material advancement of civilization necessitates creating objects of enjoyment by mental concoction, just to become happy on the basis of these two principles: pleasures for the genitals and pleasure for the tongue. Herein lies the answer to King Parikshit's question to Shukdev Goswami as to why the worshippers of Lord Shiva are so opulent. Because Lord Shiva gives them enough to enjoy the genitals and the tongue so that afterwards they become frustrated, or if the need becomes greed, then they'll get mercy of Krishna. So I guess we can stop here and we'll take up the rest of the chapter tomorrow. See anybody has any questions or comments?
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. There are a lot
Thank
of
you,
points to meditate on, especially this chapter 87 and 88, equally also very high. I mean, philosophically also.
Yeah.
Yes, Prabhuji. And very nice realization regarding Lord Shiva. Then his pure devotees. Lord Shiva's devotees are so much opulent, but we never try to follow his footsteps, that how he leads a life with so much of renounce.
Yep.
So yes, Prabhuji, every day listening to all these pastimes really gives a very strong realization that still knowing all the truth, still we are so much after acquiring material opulences and all. Although it is giving us pain, but still the habit has formed so deeply that knowing everything also it is very difficult, or I don't know where I am struggling, but knowing the truth also I feel like, okay, I'm still enjoying here, I'll be all right. So slowly I will take up to this devotional process. Taken for granted comes
Well,
very soon.
you have already taken us so seriously. You got Mahakripa. You got Mahakripa, Mahaprabhu. So yeah, we all have to take it up more seriously. Yes, that's for sure. Okay, so I guess we can stop here. You all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Jai Shri
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Jai Shri